Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Terror Talks. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today we are going to be meeting somebody new here on the show. We are proud to announce that we have officially found a new co-host here on the Terror Talks. That's right. So I would like to welcome Miss Brooke to the channel. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, I'm so
Well,
happy to be here.
we are very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining our Terror Talks family. So, Brooke, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, definitely. Right. So yeah, again, my name is Brooke. I'm in Ohio, which is, it's interesting around Halloween time for sure. But maybe not so much any other time of the year. But besides where I live, I love everything horror. Like this is probably the best podcast I could be a co-host on. I grew up watching horror movies. My dad collects them. So I've been watching them since I was like a toddler. Even every year, besides the past couple years, because of everything going on, I go to a 24-hour horror movie marathon that's in October. That's local to me. And when I was in college, we went to my roommate and we went to Cedar Point to go to their Halloween weekends every weekend because we had season passes. So we went Saturday and Sunday most weekends and did all of their haunted houses and walkthroughs. That's a lot about me. I just love everything horror-esque, scary things, haunted things. I like going ghost hunting. I am a practicing witch. I know a lot about witchcraft, mixing that into horror, scary stuff. Um, and I also have my own podcast, so this isn't my first time going around podcasting. So yeah.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your other podcast that you do?
Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't know how vague or not we wanted to be on this one, but yeah. So my other podcast is called the New Age Philosophers Podcast, and I co-host that with my husband. And we talk about folklore, witchcraft, cryptids, um, religion, politics, kind of all in there. Mythology is really big. Um, and we kind of focus more on like the educational part of things on it. Um, Even if we're reading like Reddit stories of people's like paranormal events, we'll still like tie in education to it. Um, so it's a fun podcast, but it's also there to like teach people about these topics since they are very taboo and our media and culture have taught us to hate them.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a really cool channel. What streaming services or not streaming services? What platforms are y'all on?
Yeah, we're on everything I can think of. Definitely Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio. Pretty much wherever you listen to it, you're going to find it.
Fantastic. So we are very pleased to welcome y'all into the family in a way. So definitely go check out that podcast. Definitely worth having a listen to. What's like the strangest thing y'all have ever talked about is or most memorable thing y'all have ever talked about on there? Anything come to mind?
Um, I think the most memorable thing we ever discussed was the like why Halloween is what it is. Last year we did a whole episode on like the origin of Halloween and Samhain, and how our modern traditions formed from like the ancient traditions. Um and I really liked that one. I almost told my husband to repost it for this year. I actually learned a lot of stuff I didn't even know in my research for that one.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like something that I would love to have a listen to myself just cuz I think it's also interesting where I guess the origins of Halloween came from and such. It's just something people don't think about too much cuz all they think about is trick or treating and candy and things like that.
Yes, yeah, it's totally interesting to see the things like our ancient ancestors did, and then like the colonization coming through, and then now how we just kind of celebrate it as a spooky time. It's not even a federal holiday. We just dress up and get candy.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's interesting to see how it's evolved for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I definitely encourage everyone to go check out that podcast for sure. Do it as soon as you finish listening to this episode.
Yes. Listen to this one first.
Oh, well, I don't know. You can listen to whichever one you want. But so, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a couple of my experiences that the listeners can also experience. Um, so the first one I want to bring up is a museum in Wilmington, North Carolina, and it's called the Museum of the Bazaar.
Ooh.
I just went there last weekend. And it's affordable to get in and it's easy to access. It's only like $3 to get in. And they also have a mirror maze and laser tag in there, which I didn't do those, but even with adding those on the ticket, it's still less than $20 a person. So you can get in there and experience all the fun things this weird museum has to offer. Um, you cannot take photos while inside of it, but there are certain photo spots, like the picture I submitted to put on not submitted, that I sent you to put on social media, that was in that museum.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, like, when you first walk in, there's a big, like, statue of Jason from Friday the 13th, and me and my sister were like, "We're getting a photo with Jason," and we, like, went, like, right up in, like, his arms and, like, took a photo with him, and then, then I took that one with Annabelle, and after taking those photos, we realized there are green X's on the ground where you're supposed to stand and not be, like, against the props, and I'm like, "Well, the employee never told us not to like, to do it." The Jason statue was right next to the front desk, and no one he didn't say anything. So,
Yeah, if they didn't say anything, you're good. That's usually the
yeah.
rule.
Yes. So, like, yeah, they also have statues of Hellraiser, Freddy, Michael Myers, and I think that's it. Like, I think those are the photo op places in the museum. Um, but the rest of it, you're not supposed to get pictures of anything else. Um, they had like shrunken heads on display and there was a taxidermy cow that had two heads. Um,
What?
yeah. um, and they had a whole shelf, like glass was definitely in front of it, so you can't touch any of this, but it was like various body parts of human and animals in like jars.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that one was weird. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at those. Um, they had a whole wall dedicated to real life serial killers and letters they wrote while in prison.
That is amazing.
Yes.
I would love to see that. That'd be so cool. Like,
It was interesting. I read most of them. I like true crime. Um, so I was like, okay, they got some serial killer stuff going on. Um, and then there was like this clown doll they had, and on the sign it said like, if you look in its eyes, you will be its next victim. Like it's a haunted doll. And I told my sister that, and she immediately like looked at its face, and I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I can't stop looking at it."
How
Um,
is your sister doing today, by the way?
fine. She's doing fine. Maybe she didn't look at it directly in the eyes.
Okay, good to know.
Maybe. Um, but yeah, that it's really small. That's pretty much it. Like, they had some other stuff that would be like, this was haunted, supposedly, um, and a lot of the things are, like, movie props, like, the picture that I have with Annabelle is, like, the Annabelle from the movie, not the real life Annabelle doll. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so I don't know if that was a legit movie prop, though, or if it's just, like, one that looks like it. It'd be cool if it was a real one.
I
Um,
mean, it looks like it like very well could be the real one, but then again, I have my doubts on that sometimes, you know.
yes. Honestly, as cool as this place was, I have some doubts about all what was real and what wasn't real in there. Um, there was a section where, like, if you looked up on the ceiling, they had a bunch of porcelain dolls hanging from the ceiling.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was spooky. Even though, like, I don't really mind dolls usually, but I'm like, that's too many in one place.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that was pretty much the museum. I think we spent like 20 minutes tops in there, which is like kind of good to know because when you park, it's only like metered parking, as it's like, I think it's downtown Wilmington. And right outside the museum, there's like a parking meter, like several of them. So, like, I put like an hour of quarters in there and I was like, well, somebody else is going to get like free parking here because I didn't need that much. Um, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a
It
nifty little place.
yeah, it looks like it's right off of Water Street and between Water Street and Front Street in downtown.
Okay. Yeah, I'm n not from there at all, so I was just following the GPS.
Hey,
But
that's all
yeah,
you can do sometimes.
it's, like, right on the water, though, like, right by the ocean. So,
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
that's
Very
cool. So, I'm just, thinking if you can afford to drive to Wilmington or if you live there already, this is a good place to check out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you want to visit this Museum of the Bazaar, the address is 201 South Water Street, Wilmington, North Carolina, 28401. You can call them at 910-399-2641. So, yeah, that's the Museum of the Bazaar. That sounds like something I'm going to have to check out because I've actually got family up in North Carolina. So, and I'm not sure how far from Wilmington they are. I don't think they're too far, but I'm not positive on that. I'd have to check. So I might have to check that out myself sometime. That sounds like it would be a lot of fun, and it looks like it was featured on the Travel Channel.
Oh, I didn't know that. I, that's cool. We just went there to, like, go shopping one day, and it came up on, like, something to do in Wilmington, and I was like, "What is this place? I need to go here." Um, so
You might be one of the first people I've ever met that actually did one of those things that suggested as things to do in a town like that.
when a place pops up that says it's the Museum of the Bazaar, like, what are you supposed to do?
You go there, obviously.
You go there, especially when you pull up the website and it's like, "We have a unicorn," and I'm like, "Okay, I need to see the unicorn." Um Though I don't remember it being in the museum, so maybe they need to update their website or I missed it.
Probably.
But, um, but yeah. Yeah, that's a nifty little place, but besides that, really the next experience I wanted to talk about was like a ghost hunting experience that I had.
All right.
Yeah. So this place, it's called Prospect Place, and it's in Trinway, Ohio. It's like maybe about an hour outside Columbus. Um, and it it was a house that had a part of that was featured in the Underground Railroad. So that's part of the big thing that makes it haunted. Um, though it's a huge mansion too. It takes forever to walk through it, and there's like 4 floors to it.
Oh,
Um, yes. Um, but, like, the owner had, like, at the top of the house, there's a widow's peak, and they say, in stories that, like, if the light was on, that meant people jumping off the trains were allowed to come into the basement as part of, like, the Underground Railroad, but if the light was off, they knew they weren't allowed to stop there. Um, and there's, like, a barn, um also, to preface, I didn't say this. I believe this house has also been on Ghost Adventurers and Ghost Hunters.
oh, nice. That's awesome.
Ghost Adventurers, I know for sure because when they were giving us a tour, like the owners were giving us a tour, well, it's like community owned, but like the people on the board for it, were showing us the barn, and there's like a second floor to the barn, and they were like, "You can't go up there. It's hazardous. Like it's not ready for people to walk on." And my dad was like, "Well, Ghost Adventurers got to go up there, and they said, yes, that is why they are banned from coming back." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh,
wow.
oh, okay." Um, but yeah.
Yeah, it says that Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, Mysteries at the Castle, and Ghost Brothers have all been there.
Yep. It's a nifty place. I was gonna say a nifty little place, but it's definitely a big place.
I say, yeah, it looks amazing. I mean, I would love to check that out.
Yes. Yes, and I wanted, to touch on, like, some experiences we had.
Okay,
So
awesome.
I don't know how much everybody believes in this, but I mentioned earlier that I was a practicing witch. I'm very empathic. So like I can sense people's feelings and emotions, and maybe when things are there that shouldn't be there necessarily. And we were out in the barn, and I kept looking over at a certain area, and I was like, there's something over there. And like we weren't going over there because everybody was like, "Oh no, like it's nothing." And then later when we were listening to the audio because we were doing like EVP work, when I mentioned like something's over there, you can hear a growl.
Ooh.
Yes. And I was like, I told y'all there was something there that didn't want us there. It made me very uncomfortable.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things I've always said, so like me and my coworkers were always talking about ghosts and stuff at our job because I work at a church actually, so we're like thoroughly convinced that it is haunted. And one of the things I've always heard people say is like you said, oh, there's something here. Well, for me, I feel like in a way anybody can always sense like when there is something there that shouldn't be because you get this feeling of being watched.
You do, especially if it doesn't want you there. It's just like, okay, we need to go.
Yes.
Um, so that was right at the beginning of the night. And not a lot happened in between that and the next story I'm gonna tell. But I just want to say when you go ghost hunting, a lot of the times you don't get activity. And that's because the people who did get activity lived there for years and their experiences happened over years, and you were there for like 6 hours.
Right.
So you may not get something every time you go. But they we went into the basement, and the basement was terrifying, because it's outside and you have to open up, like, the storm doors for people that live in areas with tornadoes. You might sound it might sound familiar, but they're huge, like, doors on the outside of the house, and you have to walk down, like, a ladder to get in the basement.
Yeah.
And and then there were 2 rooms in the very back that they said that, the slaves slept in. And um we set up a bunch of chairs at the end of the hallway between those like two rooms. We were in like a circle. So like my husband was next to one door, it was me, and then across from me was my dad, and then my dad's wife was next to the door on the other side of the hallway. So it's like a semicircle almost. And we kind of heard footsteps, and then I heard, like, water trickling, and I was like, my dad was like, "Oh, there's something here," and I was like, "I don't know, there's pipes right above us. It's water." And then from the room behind my husband, we heard something slam down on the ground, and it's like clay, muddy ground, and it sounded like a huge, like, dictionary was being thrown onto the ground. Um
And this happened right after your dad had said he heard the water?
That was after I said I heard the water. I was like, "This isn't a ghost, it has to be water, like, coming in the pipes." And then the slam happened.
Ooh, that he did not like you saying that it was just
No.
water.
My dad was like, "No, that's something." And then after that, we could hear a thump, like, coming out of the room because 'cause you'd, like, step into the room, and then we heard a thump on the mud right next to where my husband was sitting. So, like, somebody stepped out of the room, and then, me and my husband started feeling very sick, and I was like, "My stomach hurts, like, I'm about to throw up, and it's pitch black in here, and we would have to clean it up, and, like, that just sounds like a bad time, so, like, I'm leaving." And we had out one of these devices, I don't remember the official name of it, but it reads it goes from, like, green to red, and it's supposed to show maybe it's a electromagnetic magic field, detector, something like that. But anyway, they my dad said when I got up and walked away, that device spiked all the way to the end, and then once I left the room, it went all the way back down to nothing, and then him and his wife sat there for, like, 10 more minutes after I left, and they said that they nothing else happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, crazy, and then I just sat in a room in the house, like, I just went back inside and just sat down, and, like, they had, there's just a little, like, lobby you can sit in, and I
Mhm.
just did not feel good, and at this point, it was, like, 3 in the morning, so I told my husband we needed to go, and pretty much as soon as we left the property, I felt better.
Wow, that
Yes.
like, I've heard of, watching those ghost shows and whatnot all the time, those ghost hunting shows. I've always heard, especially on Ghost Adventures, I see it a lot, like, the main guy will always get sick in some of these places. Yeah, and so it's interesting to actually hear somebody else say that they have had a similar experience to that. So I'm actually kind of curious if he had that type of experience when he was there or not. I would love to go back and watch that episode if they've had an episode of it and see if he had a very similar experience because there's just something about that that's kind of interesting.
I haven't watched it, or if I have, it's been a really long time, so I'll need to watch it. Um, but those were, like, my biggest experiences there. I definitely wanna go back. Their prices are also I think their prices are pretty low too. They're definitely more expensive than the museum, but it's like more people you have in your party, the less expensive it is.
Yeah, which
Um
makes sense.
Yes. Um, and you have to decide if you want the lights on or off, because there's only one way to have all the lights on or all the lights off. Um, and of course, we chose to have the lights off. So that makes like in the basement, that's how it is. And that I think that made it even more creepy.
Yeah, well, I mean, how else would you even want to have a ghost hunt, though? I mean, that's the way that I would expect it to be is with the lights off. I mean, it just seems like it would make the most sense to do it that way.
Yes, definitely. That is how you want to do it.
Now I'm looking at their website. Was it a private ghost tour that y'all did?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it says on Wednesday and Thursday nights it's $60 per person, and then on the weekends 70 per person.
Yes, we did it on a Saturday. Um, so yeah, and on my other podcast, we did a whole episode about it back then because it was like a year ago. So a lot of my details are a little fuzzy, but when we recorded it back then, it wasn't.
Ooh,
Um,
another episode I'll have to check out then.
yeah, and we got permission from them to talk about it. They they said as long as we weren't recording them giving us a tour of the property and then trying to sell it, then we could do whatever we wanted. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm not going to do that.
It seemed I wish you could record there though, because I mean, not necessarily to sell it or make money, but just for the fact to have that experience on tape. I mean, like I feel like that'd be great.
We have our audio files because we did EVP sessions, and I took some photos, but I don't have like the camera equipment to even try to record at in the dark.
Yeah, because don't you need like a special type of camera for the night vision part of it and all that?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe one day.
One day.
Um,
That's the goal.
yes. But yeah, there's some interesting things also like lore wise that happen there obviously, or it wouldn't be haunted. um
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you knew like any of the sort of history as to I guess what was haunting it, or I guess I should say who was haunting it is a better way to question.
I remember some of it.
Hey there, Terra Talk fans. Are you looking for a new way to let your voice be heard? If so, check out our friends at Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for creating your very own podcast. They offer editing tools to create your podcast, which include your audio, listener audio, unique transitions, and custom advertisements. In addition, they'll also help you distribute your podcast to other listener sources, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. With this unique app, you also have the chance to get paid for your podcast by simply placing ads for various sponsors in your videos. Best part of it all? It is 100% free. Anchor does all the work for you and makes podcasting as simple as turning on a light. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM. Whether you're new to podcasting, doing it as a hobby, or hosting a professional show, Anchor is the place for you.
So the main guy that owned the place, the town absolutely loved him. And there was, so, I mentioned like the slaves, and sometimes they were allowed in and sometimes they weren't. And when they weren't allowed in, it was when like bounty hunters came around to like turn people in for like harboring slaves. And I guess one time the owner told a bounty hunter to get off of his property, and the bounty hunter like turned his gun on him, and the town decided to do their own like judge jury eviction to this guy and hung him in the barn, which is why the barn is supposed to be haunted by this man. But obviously nothing is recorded of that ever happening. It wouldn't, yes, it wouldn't be on any county records.
Yeah.
And then there's another one. So they have a servants' quarters because it's a mansion. So there's a whole servants' quarters, and then they had a sick room. And the sick room was like right behind the servants' quarters. And it said that a servant was sick and she was walking out of the sick room, slipped on the balcony and fell off because they didn't have a railing. and
Oh, wow.
she died when she fell. Um, and it said it was, like, in the winter, so they couldn't yeah, it was in the winter, that's why she slipped, there was ice, and so they couldn't bury her because the ground was frozen, so they had to keep her body in, like, the freezer, but when we were given the tour, they said that they would have never kept a dead body with the food. Because like, the basement is where the servants kept the food, like, the frozen food and stuff. So they said, like, if that really happened, her body wouldn't have been in the freezer, it probably would have just been, like, out in the snow,
The,
most likely.
so it sounds like part of the lore might have gotten a little fabricated somewhere along the way.
Yeah, uh, this is, like, in the 1800s, so it is a lot of records can be, like, hard to go through and figure out, like, what's real and what's not. Um, but what's interesting is they definitely lived a lot different lifestyle than we did. So, like, they had when you walk in, there's, like, a library, and then on the other side, there's, like, the women and kids room, and then the men had their own, like, man parlor where men could do whatever men do in there, and then next to that room was the owner's suite, and then his wife's bedroom was upstairs on the 2nd floor, and then the kids there was a girl's bedroom and a boy's bedroom, and then, like, a family room. Um, and then the 3rd floor is a ballroom, so they have, like, a bar, and it's, like, a horseshoe-shaped ballroom for all the parties, and then the
Oh,
4th floor is the widow's peak.
huh.
Um, yeah, so I'm like but when I say boys' room and girls' room for their kids, they are huge bedroom well, I say huge bedrooms, but, like, they had a lot of kids, so it had to fit a good amount of kids. Um, and then I'm like, can you imagine sharing a room with, like, a bedroom with 5 other people? Um,
It crowded pretty quick.
yes. Um But then, like, the owner's wife died and he remarried, and his new wife had a daughter that had, like, a disability, so she had to have her own bedroom, so what was the family room became her bedroom, and it says
Oh,
that
wow.
she haunts that bedroom, and they have, like, toys in there that you can, like, try to get her to play with you, so we tried that. Um, Nothing really came of that, though.
Hmm.
Um, we did go in the ballroom. I never saw anything in there, but I believe my dad and his wife said that they would see like kid shadow figures like poking their head around the corners.
Interesting.
Yes, because the tour guide did tell us that the kids were not allowed in the ballroom during the parties, but when there weren't any parties happening, they would play in it and like pretend to be like the adults. So,
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I mean, it very well could have been them.
yes, especially if 2 adults were sitting in there. But there were a lot of bats. That was real life terrifying. Because it's pitch black, you can't see anything, and then out of nowhere, like, you see something, like, fly past you
Oh, jeez.
or, like, hit you when it's flying.
Yeah.
Um, um, but yeah, that's mostly all I can remember of, like, the lore. So it's mostly, like, the people that haunt it are, like, slaves, that girl that fell off the balcony, the potential dude that got hung in the barn.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the family's kids came back home. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that is a possibility. You know, I have I have to ask though, because I just thought about this. The one who died in the snow, or no, whichever one was it that was sick and was in the sick room and then died shortly thereafter. Have you ever thought that maybe it was her that was bothering you when you went there?
Oh, I did not think about that, but it definitely could have been.
Because the room was in the basement, wasn't it?
Um, no, the sick room was not in the basement. Only the slave rooms were in the basement. Um,
Well, then it could have been her. Because if the story was true that they put her body in the fridge,
yes, that is very true. I didn't think of that. Oh, that gave me chills.
that was it. Like you said that, and you were mentioning everything, and I'm like, wait a minute, you were in there, said you felt sick, like you were gonna throw up. What if it was her?
Yeah, that's true because she may have felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, people didn't know what railings were, so she fell.
Wonder why there were no railings. Like,
I don't know. It was like I'm pretty sure it was just across from the sick room, I believe is like the laundry room. So like they would just go like back and forth, like it's like a little bridge. But for
hmm.
some reason there wasn't a railing. There's definitely a railing now.
Well, I guess so.
But what sucks for her is right underneath there is steps that lead into the house and they're like marble stairs. So
Ooh,
that's what did it
that
in.
yeah. I'm about to say that's bend right there when you hit that.
Yes. Um, and we looked over the railing to it, and I was just like, it made me feel weird because I was like, what if this railing just like comes undone or
I
something?
mean, don't underestimate it. She might be trying to take y'all there with her.
Oh, I know. I know. So yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time out there. Um,
Well, that definitely seems like a type of like I've never been ghost hunting officially. I should throw in the officially because like when I was a kid we used to always think we were ghost hunting but we never actually were. And like so I used to like really be obsessed with all those ghost hunting shows like Ghost Adventures and actually that was really the only one. I never really cared for ghost hunters, but I think I just liked the more dramatic sort of take that they took on Ghost Adventures. And so we used to always like I would ask people like, "Oh, like my friend because he would always ghost hunt with me. He'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, my house is haunted by my cat or something." And he still claims it to this day actually. He claims that one of his houses was haunted by his cat. And so we like I remember like looking around for it. And actually I remember when I was real young. Actually, I couldn't have been too young, but I was at my aunt and uncle's house, and they had a dog that passed away. But this dog would sit upstairs, like you would go up the stairs and go to the right, and there was a bedroom right there at the end, and the dog would sit right in front of that bedroom. Well, when they got the new dog, or one of their daughter's dog was there, something or another, the dog would not go upstairs. It refused to. It would literally just sort of bark at that spot. It would not lay there. It would not go up the stairs. It was like scared to death. And I remember, like, I think it was Thanksgiving. I went over there and I said, I'm getting to the bottom of this. And I brought my phone up to the room with me and I closed the door and locked it. And I remember just sitting in there with the voice recorder saying, like, is there anybody here? You know, make yourself known, that type of thing. And taking pictures left and right. And I remember freaking out because there were so many orbs flying on the screen. And then I found out real quick, those are not orbs, that is dust. So it was debunked, but it was fun while it lasted. And I like that was one of those earlier experiences where I was kind of like, I've always believed that there is another, like there is an afterlife, there are spirits. Like I do believe that. And a lot of people I've talked to believe it too. But so I've always been a little overly paranoid about, oh, there's something in here. There could be, because I mean, there could be. I mean, you never know. And like I said earlier, you get that feeling of something's watching me, and your instinctive actions, your instinctive mind knows better than your moral mind of like you're not gonna make sense when you think something's watching you or you think you're in danger. That's all you're thinking about. You're not thinking, "Oh, come on, there's nothing there." Like that's impossible, but it's really not impossible. I mean,
Yes, that is very true. Um, I, this is something I could mention too. Um, Speaking of ghost hunting, and we talked about Wilmington, North Carolina earlier. Also, there in Wilmington is the USS Battleship North Carolina, and it's a museum. But I know for a fact that Ghost Hunters has done a ghost tour there.
oh,
Um, I don't know if they do private ghost hunting tours. I've been on the boat to the museum in the past. I did not do it this year, but Wilmington could be like a one-stop shop for weird things. Um,
weird things, ghosts, all that fun stuff.
yes, and then I guess if you want to learn about the US Navy while you're at it, you can go on the boat and tour it.
Well, I know there's another one in Charleston actually that um, has something very similar. I don't remember what ship it is, but there's a ship there that you can go on and they do ghost tours. And a friend of mine actually just did it, and I meant to ask him. I think he told me there was no real good experience, like nothing really happened, because he's big into ghost hunting and that type of thing. And actually, he just gave a tour of his hometown where he lives in Winsboro, South Carolina. He was a guide on a ghost tour around there, and he tried like crazy to get me to come up there, but I couldn't because I had prior commitments, unfortunately. But he did that, and I think him and some of his friends went and did their own ghost hunting afterwards, and like they do some like going to the cemetery, wandering around cemetery at 3 in the morning type ghost hunting. I'm, I'm like, I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not that brave.
Well, and like you don't want to get like in trouble. You want to be like in coordinates with the law. Like I don't know about everywhere, but at least where I am, you can't be in a cemetery after dusk.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes.
I've always wondered what like the unspoken rule is with cemeteries, or I guess what the legal rule is with them, because I always wonder if anyone's in them.
There's a sign on the one in my town um that says it. So maybe it's like per city.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not really sure. It's interesting though because they always say cemeteries are like uber haunted, and it's just like you can never find out though because technically you're not supposed to be in there.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I know somebody that is like medium, kind of like me, and a they went to a cemetery on Halloween, even though like they celebrate Samhain, even though it's like kind of almost the same, but they went to a cemetery to give respects to their ancestors, and they were like, everybody was saying hi to me, and I was like, that sounds terrifying. Um Like, the whole cemetery just saying hi to you?
Yeah, no thanks. I'm good. I think maybe one ghost limit, one spirit limit is all I'm good for.
Yes. Um, but she gives, like, offerings and stuff too, and I'm like, "That's why they're saying hi to you because they want what you got."
Yeah, probably. I mean, it would make sense, I guess.
Um, but yeah, I think those are the 2 experiences I wanted to mention for this episode. I do have ghost hunting experience at another place, but I don't wanna say them all in one episode.
No, absolutely, definitely. We gotta save some stuff for later. You know,
Yes.
we've got years worth of material here, y'all.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
We're not going anywhere. We're sticking around.
Forever.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much. Forever.
Yeah.
We're never leaving. We're staying here forever. We're going to die with this podcast. We'll be haunting it.
Yes.
I love it. But thank you for joining us.
Mhm.
It has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to have you on for more. I mean, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think this is going to be a new era, so to speak,
Yes.
for the podcast. I'm
Totally.
very excited. So thank you guys so much for tuning in on this episode of the Terror Talks. My name is Jeremy. My co-host today has been Brooke. Be sure to go check out Brooke's other podcast, the New Age Philosophers Podcast. You can find them anywhere.
Yep.
So go check them out. I'm actually looking at one of their sites right now. And like I said, they cover all sorts of topics. So check them out. You definitely want to see them. It's awesome. But that is going to do it for us today. If you want to catch more of our content, be sure to subscribe to all of our listener sites. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and a collection of other ones all listed down below. Be sure to go follow us on all of our social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to give us a little bit of extra support, we do have a Patreon. You can go and subscribe to any one of our packages, getting some various perks from each of those. Every dollar that you subscribe with allows us to further the content and bring you more episodes. You can also go check out our website where we post all of our haunt reviews, and that is listed in the description. Finally, we want to thank you guys. We cannot do the show without you. You are what makes the show, and by you giving us your support each episode, it allows us to keep going and furthering the show. So thank you guys so much for doing what you do. But that is going to do it for us today. My name has been Jeremy.
And I've been Brooke.
And we want to thank y'all for joining us on the Terror Talk. So until next time, be safe out there.
Bye.
Don't text and drive. And be excellent to each other. Take care, guys.
Bye.